doing it in 30 minutes, I will make it work. But I did this recently for the Let's Speak BO when we did the IBIS under the Let's Speak BO series, and Paul had me presenting there as well. And I was surprised how well it worked out, because I could spend 2 hours. In a training class, you spend an hour and a half, sometimes even more, and I do extra stuff. And well, because there's so much you can do. So let's just gen something up and let's talk about it, kind of highlight some of the key things. Calculations are an everyday way of life inside of Webi. You've got to have the ability to create them, because you got stuff that's not there. There's, whether they're arithmetic calculations, character string or string-based calculations, it doesn't matter. We need the ability to extend it out. So let's build it from a simple little model. Let's highlight some of the really neat things that are available. Okay. As part of calculations, kind of fill in the blanks for some of you as well, I'm sure. And I double-click the folder, but I'll take the discount out. And just so I don't have too many clutter, well, I'll leave that one out there as well. We'll run it. Now let's talk about formulas and variables and functions, and what you can do with them. And as you went through the service pack levels from 4.2 SP3 all the way up through 7, there have been some enhancements, some nice enhancements in the function library. You need to check those out. I usually highlight them in training. If I get a chance today when we look at some of the functions, we'll see if we can. But there's been a number of new functions that are really handy. Time between, dates between, other types of functions that are there to make our lives easier to do things as well. So let's take the report that we have. We'll do a break on year, first of all. You all know I do breaks all the time in the reports, an everyday way of life. Lo and behold, there we go. It's broken out, automatic subtotals for all 3 columns. I wish I would have done a count along the way, but that's pushing our luck for the count automatic generation. But that's okay, that'll work for us there. And the age-old problem you have is I've got a sales revenue column, and I need to be able to create another calculation that will take 6% of it, so I can net out what's going to be a new tax. Okay, maybe it could be a shipping fee that everybody's charging, but it's 6%. So I need a place to stick the formula. You know, there's a formula bar right up here. So when you click on various columns, it's showing you what that column represents. This is the data. That's the title. Name of takes the name of the object as defined in the universe, or as a local variable, and picks it up there automatically. Okay. So I need to create a new calculation. The problem is, where do I put it? Well, formulas by definition have to have a home, row, column, or cell. I need a row next or a column next door where I can put the 6% of that value next door so I can see it. I don't want it scattered somewhere else. So the first thing you're always going to want to do is right-click, insert. And I used to go to the top all the time. In earlier versions, you used to have the insert up there, but they've moved it around. And we'll insert a column on the right of where I'm at. Now at least I have a place here now that I can use to hold the calculation of the 6%. Right? There's nothing in it. There's nothing for me to pull in there. So the only way I can do is generating it myself. Well, if you, just like in Excel, if you go into here, you can put your equals and try to figure out the components. In that limited space, I need more room than that. This isn't going to work for me. So I go over to the left, 4th option over, and I click edit the formula window, and the formula editor comes up. Very nice. There it is. Okay. And I can do limited amount of stretching for it. I'm working with Paris. I've made a request that they make this window spread out a little bit more in here, so we have more room to work with when we're doing it. But nevertheless, there you go. Okay. So, and the way it works is you probably expect, and on top you're going to build the actual arithmetic formula. In this case, it's arithmetic. I have a list of available objects. I have a list of built-in functions, and I have a bunch of other operators that are available. A lot of different things, your in list, context, you know, for each, for all, and in. A lot of different things are available to us in there as well. So if there's something from your universe that you need, and you didn't bring it into your query, it's not available. You can only work with what you brought in. So this is a good time to evaluate and say, did I get it? Did I miss anything or not? Any local variables you define now become shared. They're available throughout the whole document once you create them. Same with reference cells. Reference cells pick up specific values. I'll talk about those briefly. That's a relatively new feature as well, where I can actually point to a specific cell, maybe a grand total for sales revenue or a grand total for quantity sold, and make them directly referenceable as a scalar or a single value, and build all kinds of interesting mathematical formulas off of that as well. In the middle of the function library with a lot of different functions in there that are available, we'll get to those later on the right, the context as well. So my formula needs to have an equals, which it will often put in anyways. And what I want to do is take sales revenue, put it into the box, so it's equal to sales revenue. Come on guys, put it up there. sales revenue, and I'm going to space it. I like lots of spaces, and I'll just type the asterisk in off the keyboard. I don't need to go to the operator window to find it. For me, with my bad eyes at my age, I can't even, the asterisk often looks too small. 0.06, we'll make it as simple as we can so we can move on to some more advanced stuff with it. And it says the formula is correct, which is the magical word. And you go in here, and now you have your calculation. Sales revenue times 0.06. I want a title. I can double click in the title area, just like in Excel, as you all know. Type in my tax title with the enter key and not the click of the mouse, and it even has a title. Right? So that worked out well. If I need to change it, as long as I click in the data section, I can go up here and change it. If I want to do extra work, I can open up the formula editor and do it in here as well. So different places, you can do the same thing as well. So now I need another column because I want to be able to net it out. I need a net revenue, so that makes logical sense. So why don't we do that? We'll insert another column to the right. And for that insert column on the right, we're going to take this column. What I want to do is I want to take this the tax column, or take the original sales revenue minus the tax to equal the net revenue. So, well, I'm in the column, not in the title. I'm in the data section of this blank column, so I'm good to go. So I open up my formula editor, as you would like to always want to do. And I said, well, let's take sales revenue from here. We'll drag it up into the window, or, yep, sometimes it's finicky, but I got it to go in there, space it over. Minus, right off the keyboard, we have a problem. There's no net revenue. What did I say? You have to be careful when you're defining calculations. Do I make it a formula? Do I make it a variable? If I make it a formula, to be blunt, you're screwed. Because now I can't reuse it somewhere else. And I know what you're saying, but you could do sales revenue times 0.06 and repeat the second part of it. But then I got to change it in two places. And what if I need to use that somewhere else, in a third, in a fourth, and it defeats the purpose of it all? That ain't going to work. Well, Webi has it all thought out, all the way back to the old desktop days. The ability to take what you originally created as a formula, for whatever reason, and convert it to a variable. Okay? So let me talk about something first before we do that. I need to take this tax column, and I need to come up with it as a permanent or a variable, which is more permanent by definition, and define it so it shows up in my variable list as a local variable to be used. Right now, this is a formula. So if I were to right-click, delete that column, or drag it out, I have no way to bring it back without building it brand new. It's another disadvantage if you create it as a formula. But I'm going to convert it. Take what's already there. I'm going to go up to the formula line, use the create variable option over here on the left, and it's specifically used to redefine it. And we're going to call it sales tax. You can tell I've done this before. It's picked up some previous history. And it's going to be sales tax, all right? And we're going to do, and we'll just leave it the way it is. While I'm in there, I could have done some other work on it, but I'll do an okay on that one. And now it looks the same. It is the same. But when I click on the column now, by definition, the formula window tells you that it's equal to square bracketed sales tax, so you know it's an object. One of two types of objects, either from your queries or a local variable. It can be one or the other. You never know. In this case, we converted it over. Didn't change the title. It didn't, because that was originally a blank column that got hard-coded in with the title. So two ways you can fix that. You can double-click and do it that way. The lazy man way that I do is I can drag that new one out, and then take the sales tax and drag it right back in again and put it right back where it was, because I'm too lazy to do it the other way, and now it brought the correct name of the variable in as the default title, which you can change. So now I can take that extra column over there on the right side, open up the formula editor, and now I can take sales revenue here and go up here and do my minus my sales tax, which is there. Look how nice that is. And if I'm smart, I will get into the habit of checking them. Never hurts to do that, and keep your fingers crossed. And lo and behold, there you go. And now you've got your net revenue. And if I wanted to convert that, all I would have to do is do a create variable. We'll actually do it here. We'll call it net revenue for that one, just to do it, make it nice for that. Notice the description box. That's a new feature that I suggest you take advantage of. Big time. Self-help messages that pop up everywhere in Webi. They're going to be dictated by that. So I'll do an okay on that one, and we just did a quick convert and convert it over, and lo and behold, there we go. Now that they're variables, like any other variable, all I got to do is right-click edit. That's one of several ways to go into the edit properties, and I can change the calculation around for it. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do there. And if you move your mouse over the top of a local variable, it does actually shows you the formula. Double clicking on it will open it up and allow you to change it as well. And I love the functionality and the self-help that's everywhere in Webi. If you're a new user, kind of light at it, and you're trying to use some of these different features from the analysis tab, why would you not let the help messages pop up and help you out? They're there to assist you, to give you information, tell you something about it. We now have the ability to extend it as well. So what you run into is a scenario that says, okay, I'm creating new variables. What should I do? Formula or variable? Well, it doesn't matter. If I create the variable directly, the difference is I have to drag it in. If I convert a formula that was originally inserted into a variable, I don't have to drag it back in because it's already there, but now it shows up. And now it's multifunctional. And in the end of the world here, you want to keep this in mind, and when you end of the day rather, is that variables are generally always better than a formula because I can use them anywhere and everywhere. And for time's sake, let's look at reference cells real quick. What if I wanted to capture the grand total for these columns? Let's go down to the bottom. This is, again, another type of feature for formulas and variables. I don't have totals at the bottom, so I need to put totals in. So if I go to Format Table, I showed you that in the earlier session today with breaks. There's a break footer that will automatically cause it to put, or table footer, it will put the grand total in. Now at the very bottom, you have your grand total cell showing up as you'd expect. Unfortunately, they overflowed, but let's see if we can quickly get those auto-fit the way I want them so we can see what they are. It's always finicky that way, but if I get it just right on the edge, we can get my little lines to get it to come up. All right, well, we'll leave it like it is for now unless I get lucky on that one. So now what happens is I want to capture the grand total value right here. Okay? Unfortunately, we can't see it, but I'll fix that problem. Right-click Format Cell. Here's a shortcut way of doing an auto-fit on a column when it's not cooperating. It's my backdoor way that always seems to work for me there. And maybe for the quantity sold, I already got it. So what if I need to be able to access this single grand total value for a variety of calculations? I'm doing averages or different types of things. That's not an easy thing to grab. You could use context operators. It gets very complex. What do you do? What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create a reference cell. It's going to become another object that's available to me, but it can't be under variables. It's going to go under reference cells. It's a single cell value. It's scalar, but it's considered another object that now you can use throughout the report for any type calculation. The easiest way to do it, it's on a toolbar, but it's to go in here, and you'll see the assign reference cell to it. It says give me a name for it, so I call it GT Sales Rev. We'll do that real quick out of the gate for that one there. And I do have a reference cell, and I can grab the quantity sold the same way. I can assign a reference to it and call it GT QTY sold. This is an excellent feature to have, the ability. So many times trying to teach people how to do constant operators and different variables to capture the values. Now they're available to us. I can drag them into any arithmetic calculation. I can drag them out onto the reports and so on along the way. If I want to know where they came from, I can say, show me the reference cell. It'll actually point to where it is, and there it is. Just got to make sure you don't get rid of that from the report block that it's in, because it'll come back with an error. There's no warning as well. So that was an advanced feature introduced early in 4.3 for us to be able, or 4.2 rather, to be able to reference cells directly for the sake of these type of intermediate grand totals. Yes, I could then also do this for every year, each of the 4 years for the subtotal values. I could have each year's subtotal for quantity sold and sales revenue, and have an additional expanded library of reference cells, and I can do all kinds of things with them as well. Okay? So reference cell is a great, great feature, and I was really tickled to see that get introduced quite a long time back as well. Let's do another one. Let's look at some other common things people do and some of the functionality that's available for us here that will help us. Okay. So what if we need to combine the states into a region, all right? You're thinking, wait a minute, I went to one of your other sessions, you had a function called group that you clicked on, and when the group function came up, you checkboxed your values in it for that, and you did a group, and you created the groups on the fly. You gave me all the existing values already, uniquely, and I just had to do the corresponding grouping. And I show you that because don't forget about that group. If you think about it, it's really an extension of variables, and the group variable you create shows up under variables, and it's a time saver, and it ensures better accuracy. Let's assume I didn't have that. And I said, well, I need to come up with a new variable. So what I'm going to do is go over to the variable tab here, and there's a right-click, new, that I can do. Or for many of you, off the data access tab, you can also do a new variable. Let's take a good look at this one. And the name of it, we're going to call the name of this region. And if you think about it, there's typically two types of calculations generically. There's more than that, but two broad scope ones: string-based and alphanumeric and calculation-based, arithmetic-based. So this is a string one. We're trying to take states and group them into regions. And we'll go only part way on it. I got to make sure it's defined as a dimension. Now I need the formula for it, and I need to use an if-then-else expression. Okay, I need an if-then-else expression to be able to make it work. I got to make sure I lock this in place when I do that because it floats otherwise. One of the things I don't like about the current variable window is it's hard to get down to the bottom because you can't push this all the way up to the top. So I need a formula that uses equals in the if statement with an if. Now, in the function library, there's a lot of different functions that are available. One of them is called the if statement. And we're going to look at it under miscellaneous is where they put it. And if you notice, there's an else and an else if and a then and so on. Typical terms you would hear used for if then else expressioning as we go through. Okay. And we're looking for the if, and here's the if. Now, if we're a smart user, we use the online help. We say, here's an if statement, and here's how it works. And he says, it's if Boolean value, then true value, else false value. You look at that and say, that's all you can give me for this particular one. Some are very good. If you're a smart user, you use the help that's extended on the bottom here, and you open up the extended window. And you get a tab with 2/3 of it's relative to what you are working on right now. The other third is kind of an index of all the different areas you can get into for what you're working with. And you can look down the line and see how it's used. Okay. Well, one of the problems that comes up with this, why I highlight this as well, is this is showing it to you as an if-then-else expression, i.e., look down here. Let's take the second one. If sales revenue greater than 1 million, then high revenue, else revenue. Okay, or it could be an else if. But what if I come from the Excel world and I'm using Excel functions and I'm used to the if function? You say, well, I get penalized. Webi, no. Webi says, no, I'm not going to penalize you. If you select the related information, you select that if statement that's there. Oh, got to get it just right. It brings you up the if function, and now you can look through and see how you would do it as an Excel-like function if you wanted to look at it that way. You can print these different selected ones off or dump the whole library if you want. A lot of my customers do that, so it's quicker referencing that way. But it's all documented online. So I have my if, first I say if, and then my state. I need state next. Sometimes it's automatic pop-up feature isn't to your advantage. So if my state. And now I need states that are in a list. I want to use an in list statement that are in a list of values. So how do I do that? Well, over on the right, over in the operator window, very common one here, is in list. If you click on in list, it tells you how you do it. You say in list with the value list inside the parentheses. So I'll put my in list up there right now. And then I have to put a left parent and a right parent, and I have to put the strings in for the values I want. So in other words, I have to type, in this case, I want California and Colorado. So I start with a double quote, and then I type in C, and I continue on down the line, and I type in California, and then I close it with a double quote, and then a separator, and so on. And that's way too much work. What if there's 10 or 15 states you're trying to put within the parentheses? What happens then? So along comes a really cool function introduced all the way back in the 4.1 world, not even in 4.2, over on the right side here in your operator window, and it's called Values button. Now the way the value button works, it allows you to bring up a list of values when you're working with things like an in list and automatically plug them. In the HTML version, you have to highlight state, not a Java, but HTML, then go back, and when I click the Values button, it brings up a list using your classic multi-select. I want California and Colorado only, and I do an OK on it. And automatically plug the values in, and then I can go in and say then, I can put double quote, West. We'll just do West for shrinking it down. I can stop right there, or I can say else if and continue on. Now, who would have ever guessed something as simple as a values button in the time savers? So many of you out there, customers that have been through training, have had the same statement come up. Oh my God, this is incredible. I have 8 or 9 or 10 values in each of my in-list buckets that I'm defining, times 8 or 9 or 10 different sets of them that I'm creating. This solves the problem and makes your life a whole lot easier. And lo and behold, when you look at it this way, and we close it all out, I only did the first two, but now I have my new additional variable called region. It's a local variable. All I got to do is drag it in because since I created it new, it's not automatically in the report, and there you go. Now look again, when you start building if then else expressions for character or string based, the light bulb in your brain needs to go on. You need to think about what we did here. This is very important. Let's look at it again. The use of the in-list statement and how we worked it through to save us time and effort, because we waste so much time typically when we do those types of things as well. So we have any questions so far as I move through?
Yes, we actually had a few questions come in. The first question is there a way to maintain a reference to a cell when sometimes the report doesn't have results in the referenced area?
That's going to be a potential problem for it. What would be a way around it? Put my thinking cap on to see. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that would be a little difficult because it's pointing to a particular value and it needs it. It's one of those you may not be able to define because you're doing it specifically to the cell value. I have to think about that one.
All right, and then the next question is wondering, now that you created the reference cell, how would you use it?
Oh, what if I wanted to create a new variable called variance? Good question. Now, I often do it, but for time I didn't. But since we got a good question on it, let me do an OK to make sure I don't mess up what I've done in there. So I just go over to variables, right-click, and do a new, or I could do it off of the data access tab. We'll call it variance, VAR, or no, we'll call it average, AVG sold, average sold. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to change it to a measure. Okay. And what I want it to be is sales or quantity sold. Sales revenue, we're doing what? Average sold. So I want to do the, it's actually average. Yeah, we'll do it this way. We're going to take the quantity sold. We're going to drop that in there, and we're going to do a slash for dividing it by the grand total for sales revenue. And I could do it reverse order depending how you're interpreting it, whatever. But you get the gist of what I'm doing is I'm just pulling those single cell values in. It's going to become part of the what we call average sold, if that's the right term. Or if I looked at it that way. And now what I could do is I could just drag that average anywhere I want. It's literally standalone on the report. Anytime you drag any measure out by itself, it becomes a scalar value anyways. And there it is, and it says it's 0.01, whatever that would amount to for the calculation that we did. Okay. So that, and then I could do another calculation, and I can mix and match these any way that I want. You got to be careful though. If I blew away this block here, if I got rid of that block, or I removed the sales revenue column, it's going to throw an error on this one here because it's now gone. It doesn't warn you. You get, when you start referencing it, you get some of the pound sign errors or other types of error messages for it. And I wish it would do it differently and give you a warning, but it doesn't. Other questions?
Yes, one more. Does the value button work with Beck's query?
That I don't know because I haven't touched Beck's now in a long time. And I have a site to test it. That one I wouldn't know. I probably Google that, would tell you, but that's outside something that it's been a long while since I even had a chance to do anything with Beck's. So that's a good question, though. Be interesting to see what it would do. Other questions?
Yes, one more. Can reference be created only on grand totals, or can we create for other dimension values as well?
Any dimension value you want. For example, and it could be, it's not necessarily a dimension, because we did a measure. It could be either or. Let's assume for 2016, I wanted the Colorado one here. I wanted the sales revenue for 440,302. Right there, I can go up, assign a reference off the toolbar that way instead, give it a name, and now I can make that specific value show up. Anything you want can be referenced. All right, and it's not limited to measures for dimensions as well, depending upon what you're trying to do with it as well. But it's a great way for capturing values. Crystal Report people that come over to Webi said it's about time. This is something we could do very easily over on the Crystal side. They tell me we didn't have it available to us here. Well, guess what? We do have it available, and there it is. All right. So let's take a quick look now through the library just to highlight some advanced stuff as well, since we have a limited window, but we'll cover what we can. So we already talked about available objects. Available objects are available objects. Things you need to watch out for if you start building a whole collection of variables and possibly reference cells. and your coworkers are doing the same for the same identical calculations. Talk to the universe designer about building them into the universe. They're great candidates. Why should I and you and everybody else have to maintain these if we can put them in the universe and they're automatically taken care of for us and shared by everybody as well? So that's what I recommend you think about it as part of that. Okay. Now, let's look at a couple of areas just to highlight. There's a substring function that's available down here where you can substring. It's very, very common. You could substring something, but you can also use other functions, and you can have a single expression that has multiple functions embedded within it, one referencing another very nicely. But there's things like substringing that's available. One of the really good categories that people aren't aware of in the function library is in data provider. So if you want to display the name of the universe that you're reporting from with the query name with it, it's available there. If you want to be able to know what, let's look down a little bit further, the execution date, time, and duration, you have the ability to bring in these various functions and create a separate variable for each one and pull them in there as well. And look what it gives you, a lot of good information that's available. Universe name, if you want just the universe name. Now here's one that I really recommend if you're not familiar with. It shows you the universe, the user response. What this is the value from a prompt. So if you have a prompt in your report, one of the most common things you want to do is capture the prompt values, either for you or for someone you built the report for, and then be able to display them in the header. So if you're prompting for state, you want to be able to display what the state in the header. Because what if each state has 10 pages of detail underneath it? How are you going to remember what your prompt values were? Well, look at this one. Look how nice it is. Look how easy it is to work with. So we're going to use the help just to kind of take a quick peek. And it shows you right here on the right side what you got. So so if you have you said which city, if you created you're going to create a function, you're going to go to user response, and inside the parentheses, all you do is put in the string, the actual text that makes up your prompt, your actual prompt statement, the actual physical text, and that's all you're required to do. The other options aren't even required anymore. There's an example down in here as well that you can see for it. And that will capture the values, separated across the row, separated by semicolons. So a lot of people like user response. They had no clue that the function library has so many different functions are there, but it has an awful lot that are available. Because of the time constraint, I want to make sure I at least highlight some of the key ones. Date and time is one of the most popular categories. And why? Because we do date and time calculations up the wazoo. I'm currently working with a client, and some of you may be out there right now, trying to come up with an average, a last 7-day average. It would be a running average, but over a predefined window of 7 days, kind of what you see with all the releases from Johns Hopkins for the virus. They don't have a function, but the running average. I'm going to see if they have something that they could modify for us to be able to do it. But if you look in the functions in here, under date and time, let me open up that one. There it is. You have current date, current time, but there's some new ones in here. Days between two dates. That's a real incredible one. Last day of the week, last day of the month. Some new ones that are out there. There's a new time between function between two times. If you use the online help, it'll help you through that. I often get questions, and when I do these webinars on that one, I said, let's look it up online. They go, oh, there it is. They had it as well. The most popular one in there is, and why I'm trying to squeeze this one in while we still have time, is relative date. Relative date is a really powerful one. Relative date allows you to say, take today's date or a particular date and go forward or backwards X amount of time. Maybe I want to go forward 3 days. Maybe I want to go backwards 2 quarters. This was enhanced in 4.1 SP6 where they added a third parameter. And let's look at how it works. Let's use the help function for it. And this will be the one that we'll use as a good guide in here. So you're going to say relative date. Here's relative date, and down at the bottom here we have, let me scroll it up a little bit higher. I need it to move up a little bit more. I guess it won't. But reservation date, semicolon, 2 in this case, it's going to go forward 2 days. But if we go back to the example I just had up here, well, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to close this one here out. The relative date, if you look at its help, says, all right, you say relative date, give me the starting date, whatever that date is, whatever it is, and then there's a number in a period. Period's new. And what period allows you to do is to tell it what that number represents. If there's a number 3 in here, is it 3 days, which is the default if you don't have a period? Is it 3 quarters if you have a quarter period in there? Is it 3 months if you have month period? Is it 3 years if you use year period? And they're all in here outlined in the right side that tells you all of the different ones that are available to you. You'll see month period. You'll see quarter period down here. They have millisecond period, which I've not quite figured out what you would do with that one, but you also have a millisecond period as well. So you want to take advantage of all these. These are especially for date related. And if you have a relative date that you're using and the number is negative, if you want to back up 7 days, put a -7 day period, or just leave it closed off. And you can have your start date by backing up 7, and then your ending date be cur date, today's date. Now you can do your number of days between and use that variable in other calculations as well. There's a lot of them out there to take a good look at that make up the functions and all, but they're important ones. Under numeric, there's kind of the catch-all. They didn't know what to do with it. Threw a lot of them in there. There's one you won't have that I always mention in all my presentations that tie in with any types of calculations at all, and it's random number. There is no random number generator. They're working on it in 4.3. I haven't seen it yet, but I have a little handout that one of my customers from California developed. It's a slick little routine, not very many lines of code, using a variable, and he built one to do it for you automatically. So if you ever had need for that one, let me know. I can help you as well. The other one worth noting is rank. There's a rank function here. This is a much more powerful version of the rank button that you would normally see on the analysis toolbar. It allows you to rank and put numbers in there with it as well. So it gives you a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for that part. Just remember, all of these different functions and things that you use are available with online help. Do yourself a big favor. Please take advantage of these. They're there to help us. Use the online help. Go into the detail level. Print some of those off that are more relevant to what you're doing, but look for examples. That's what you want to do. Well, let me show you one thing here, and we can close out with this. I love this one. I developed this. And where is it? It's called Marquee. I have to chuckle when I do a right-click modify here. It opens it up in full edit capability. Unfortunately, in the 4.3 version, it doesn't do that right now. It just ignores it. It opens it up, and you still have to edit it later. But I want to show you a really slick use of a local variable. This is cool. If you had attended last week's, Amy did a presentation with HTML objects and things. I'm going to show you a real cool one here. Compliments to my friends from Oakland County out there. Found this. Look at the marquee. That marquee can be created. There's a couple things. Number one, the administrators need to make a small little addition in the central management console to accommodate HTML. But here's what it looks like. Here's the calculation that does it using HTML, marquee, and I put left to right, and I put the exact text. I know it's a little bit harder for you to read, but there it is. But here's a simple little calculation with embedded HTML in there. It allows us to create the banner. That is really cool. Look how easy that was to do. We got to think outside the box. Webi gives us so much great functionality, so many secondary features like that. And that library is full of functions that you can tie inside of other functions and do some pretty cool stuff. All right, I think I used up my allocated time. If there's any other questions, we'll take them. And I think other than that, I'll turn it